So, thanks for coming again. I'm Henry. The reason I'm doing this, basically I worked with sports people for a number of years. So I did a master's in sport and exercise psychology, and then worked with sports people on performance. Really kind of looking at increasing their levels of performance in competitions, but also if you imagine sort of increasing your sort of your concentration and the effectiveness of your training, you can imagine the impact that has on subsequent performance as well. So for me it's like it's a marginal gains thing, or it was a marginal gains thing for sports. 1% better every day, and then that racks up over time. And then over the last few years, I've started to move away from sport and working with kind of more the general public on different things, on confidence, on anxiety, helping people with stress and stuff like that. So that's what I do, and it's kind of why we're here, and why I thought it'd be nice to talk about productivity and procrastination today. We're going to start off with, it's going to be one of those kinds of talks where I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of interaction, if that's okay. Preferably with somebody you don't know. Be even better. But it's okay if you don't. Okay. So just to get us started, what I find is really good is we lay a little bit of some foundations as to why you guys are here tonight, and so then that can guide the conversation a little bit. So I'd like you to pair up. So if we do like two, do you guys want to split up, or you want to go together? It's up to you.
Go together.
You can go together. Okay, so two there and two there. Do you guys want to stay together? You want to split up?
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, okay, cool. So is that okay if we go 2, 2, 2, 2, 2? Okay. So but hold on just a moment. So the way that you're going to do this is the first person to point to the other one is going to go first. Okay, good. Yeah. So whoever points to their partner the quickest, that person is going to go first. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, you've got it now. Yeah. Okay. So that person's going to go first, right? And what you're going to do is, I'm going to time it, and what I want you to do is I want you to speak for 2 minutes and answer these questions. And the other person, what I want you to do is I just want you to listen. And I don't want you to say anything. I want you to say absolutely nothing for those 2 minutes, and just listen to the other person. And just listen to that person answering these questions in the way that they want to answer them. And then when 2 minutes happens, then we'll switch over. When you get your turn, try not to pick up on all the other things that person said as well. Try to answer these questions again for yourself. So there's going to be stuff that you agree on, and stuff that's the same. But it's kind of, what this is twofold. It's an exercise in sort of setting a destination a little bit, so I can see what you guys want to get out of this evening. But also it's an exercise in listening, and just noticing what happens when you just don't, and just listen really intently. Okay. So who's going first? Does everyone know who's going first? Good. Thank you. So first of all, what was the listening experience like? Did anybody think of something to say and then have to go, I can't say it? Yeah?
No.
So that happens a lot, right? So when we're listening, often what we're actually doing is we're waiting to say something, right? But when you shut off that that voice, when you just kind of quieten that down, what you'll find is that you'll listen. You really listen, very well. And actually, that's the kind of listening that I'd like you to take forward for the next sort of hour and a half. So questions might come up, like I was saying, questions might come up, or you might think, no, I don't agree with that, or that doesn't fit with my understanding, okay? And those thoughts might come up, but what I want you to do is just let them kind of come and go, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but some thoughts came up with stuff to say, you didn't say them, and they disappeared by themselves. You didn't actually have to say them. So that would be my best piece of advice to get the most out of not only this evening, but any communication you have, is to really, really listen to what that person's saying, instead of what is an automatic response is to go, right, when is it my turn? When is it my turn? Okay. So, awesome. Who agreed with their partner on this one? Did you agree on this? Yeah. What did you guys come up with the time?
Very similar.
Yeah.
Just looking things off, the things you need to do but not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Or doing nothing wrong.
Yeah. Right. So, putting things off. Anything else from anybody else?
I could relate to Doug's experience of having things stack up, even though they could have been ticked off quite easily beforehand. It's something I do as well. So yeah.
Sure. So, is it like there's lots of tasks to do, or?
For me, that's what having lots of tasks to do, but there's something that I know I could get done. And so I think it was what you were saying, and not getting to it to the point that there's a lot stacked up, and then you're just kind of going through all of it at the same time rather than having planned it out.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so not doing tasks that could be easily done, basically. Anything else? Anything different?
I think something we both said, and I thought was interesting, was we said we were not doing it for deliberately, like there's something holding us back.
Okay.
We didn't identify what that was.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Believing that you work better under pressure.
Okay.
So a lot of time, like whether it be studying or whatever, you leave it to last minute thinking you work better under pressure, when the reality might not be that.
Yeah, okay. That's nice, I like that. Cool. What about productivity? What's productivity?
Using the available resource, whatever that might be, time in our case,
Yeah.
to the maximum
Nice.
benefit
Oh,
of achieving a goal.
That is a very comprehensive definition, isn't it? Right. So using
I work for a company
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
known very well for
Resources.
productivity.
resources effectively. Okay, yeah, cool. Can I just write using resources effectively? Is that okay if I just leave it as that? Yeah. Anything else? Time, we've got time. Efficiency, yeah. Cool. Yeah, cool. It's good, it's good, it's all good.
Maximum output per
Yeah.
unit of input.
Yeah. Perfect. Beautiful definition. Right, okay. And then this one we're gonna do a whole page on. So what would you like to get out of tonight's talk? What would you like to get out of the sessions? Who would like to? Anyone, these guys?
Maybe changing my belief about procrastination.
I like that.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
response to it when you recognise it, you can manage it more effectively. Just worry.
Does everybody agree with this one? I think this is a pretty cool one, huh? Okay, cool. Anything else?
Some tools to sort of address it and be better with our productivity and procrastination.
Then tricks to increase focus.
We both had interest in understanding why do you procrastinate, but also the kind of all or nothing thinking is like I can't tackle that, so I will do nothing about it. I'm talking about long-term things, and maybe understanding that you could do something, but it's just this kind of black cloud that you think I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah. All or nothing. Thinking. Is that cool? Does that sum it up? Yeah.
Understanding why some tasks end up being put in the I'll leave that box.
Yeah. It's interesting how some things
Yeah.
do get put in that, right? So why? Basically the procrastination box, right? Okay, cool. Anything else?
I think for me, I definitely wish for understanding why
Yeah.
I procrastinate. I don't know why, but the other one was in terms of how I could be clear on what my end goal is. Because I think for me, with productivity, even when I do a lot of things I've set myself to do in a good amount of time, I wonder how much it's reaching my final goal. So particularly for me, whether it's around sales and increasing sales.
Mm-hmm.
And I can sometimes at the end of having what I would call a productive day realise that I could have done just one thing and actually brought in more income than all the things that I had to do. So just getting more clear on what the final goal is, and if I can actually just get rid of stuff and focus in more on my goal.
So clarity of outcome? Yeah?
I think something that we both were saying is that, similar to what this lady was saying, was that why we procrastinate in certain areas of our life, rather than just like why some tasks get put into the procrastination box, why in some areas.
It's kind of linked, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you might have some, like work-wise, you might be really focused.
That's what we say.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, is that enough? Has anyone got anything else they really want to put on here? I think, isn't it interesting that, I mean, some of you have met before, but most of you haven't met before, and everyone's going, yeah. Everyone's, yeah, come on. Hello, have we got a seat? There's one seat at the back. How are you? Anyway. Sorry? Fessa, nice to meet you. How'd you spell that, Fessa?
C-E-S-A-R.
Fessa. Nice to meet you. Welcome to our gang. So we're just talking about what we want to get from this evening's talk. And so changing my belief around procrastination, tools to be better, tricks to increase focus, understanding why, all or nothing thinking, why tasks get put into the procrastination box, clarity of outcome, and why only some areas of our life do we procrastinate. I think that's pretty good. That's plenty. I mean, we don't have all night, right? So I'm going to have to disappoint Katerina and Doug, I'm afraid. And the reason is that we're not going to be able to do that tonight. And the reason that is because there are no tools and no tricks. I'm afraid. people think there are. People think there are. People think that there are quick fixes, diets, you know, that are going to shred pounds off in like 4 weeks. And if you were to go to an NLP coach, he would be able to give you what seems like tools and tricks that are going to help you with your focus, help you with your concentration, help you with your attention. Unfortunately, that's not my style. What my style is about is looking at the underlying principles of why that stuff works short term. Yeah? So sometimes it will focus you, and then it will be like, okay, well that one stopped working now. So I need something else. And then I need something else, and then I need something else. So what that does is perpetuates this idea that there's some other trick or tool that I need. But hopefully this, for me, this is the only trick or tool you need. When you really understand what's going on, then you don't need tricks and tools. You don't need tricks and tools, because actually you'll find yourself really just being more productive anyway, because it just makes more sense to do that. It makes less sense to do the stuff that doesn't matter, you know. So yeah, in terms of tricks and tools, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense to you guys? So the way that I like to describe that is, if you have a child who's afraid of the monster in their wardrobe, right? There's 2 ways you can deal with that situation. You can teach the child that monsters don't exist, or you can get rid of the wardrobe and get a new wardrobe. And what tricks and tools are just getting a new wardrobe, you know. And it's like, what's a much more longer term sustainable is understanding what's actually going on, and that's a better way of dealing with stuff like this. Okay. Let's go with. Let's start with. I think this is a great word, and we have this one here. Okay. Now, put your hand up if you used to believe in Father Christmas, Santa Claus. Yeah? No? Never? Okay. That's right. But you know who Father Christmas is. You've heard of Father Christmas. Okay. You're aware of the legend. Okay. So, So we've got beliefs on one side and we've got truth on the other side. Okay? Now, if you believe in Father Christmas, there is certain activities, certain behaviours that you engage in if you believe in Father Christmas. Does anyone know what one of those might be?
Waiting for a miracle to happen.
Feeding the reindeer. What was that one?
Miracle to happen.
Yeah, yeah. So, if we put Father Christmas. So how would you feed the reindeer? You leave out carrots, yeah? Leave carrots. Okay. You'd be waiting for a miracle to happen, you said, okay? So waiting for miracles, okay, awesome. Anything else?
Write a letter or
yeah.
wish list.
Letter. Wish list.
Hang stocking.
Hang stocking, yeah. Perfect. Anything else?
Fly to Lapland.
Yeah, you might fly to Lapland.
Try and be good.
Yes.
Leave out milk and cookies.
Yeah. Perfect. Cookies. Best behaviour, right? So, even the guys that didn't believe in Father Christmas, have you seen people do these things? Yeah? You've seen people do these things. And put your hand up if you still believe in Father Christmas. This is like the end of a lot of people's hopes and dreams at this moment, right? So, okay, cool. So none of you believe in Father Christmas anymore. Okay? Do you still do these things? No. And how quickly did you stop doing those things after you realised the truth?
Straight away.
Yeah,
Well,
it
no,
depends if
I
you're keeping the.
yeah.
Yeah, it depends if
Got
you're
a
keeping
younger
the.
sister.
So for yourself. Oh yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. So if you that's fair
enough.
enough. But you know that this isn't true, right? Even though you're doing it. So essentially, let's imagine you don't have any younger siblings. You don't like, oh, I'm going to try not to write a list this year. I'm really going to try. Oh no, I did it. I did the list. Damn it. Once you go, when you see the truth, your behaviour changes like that. Instant. It's immediate. There's no, oh, I'm going to try and do this, or I need some tips and tricks, and I need some focus, and I need this. No. You just go, oh my god, that was stupid, wasn't it? Flying reindeer, are you serious? Who was eating the damn carrots there? Right? So, we as human beings, we pick up beliefs. We pick up beliefs from all over the place. And beliefs have, I'm going to put this here. If this is the belief, these are what we call implications. So the implications of a belief are the behaviours, the other ideas, the other thoughts, you know. You just be like, oh, we have to go and sit on Father Christmas's lap, because if I don't tell him what I want, I'm never going to get it, right? And so a whole bunch of behaviours arise as implications from this belief. Now, what other beliefs have we got? One of them is, okay, I don't want to write anything. I work better under pressure. Yeah. Anything else?
I don't have time.
I don't have time.
It's boring.
Boring.
It can wait.
Yeah.
I would say I have enough time is also.
Yeah. Plenty.
Yeah.
I'm not ready. Let's take this one. In fact, let's take this one. I don't have time. What are the implications? If you believe that you don't have time to do something, what are the implications of that belief?
You do nothing.
You don't. You certainly don't do that thing, right? You certainly don't do that.
Or you don't plan things properly.
Yeah.
It doesn't get that.
Perfect. Don't plan properly.
You rush things.
You rush. Maybe. Yeah. Absolutely. So.
So you miss out on things.
You miss out on. Yeah. You might cancel things. You might say, "Oh no, I can't go out to that because I don't have time because I'm doing this thing." So, like, if you think of you as an individual, picking up all these beliefs ever since you're a little baby, right? You're picking up beliefs, and the more and more and more beliefs you pick up, the more implications they have. And the impact of that can be negative, or not even negative. It's just going to have an effect, right? Those beliefs are going to have an effect on the way that you step out into the world, right? Now, what's really important is to distinguish between beliefs and truth. Now, truth is, so let's say we've got, how many of us now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of us, okay? So we've all got our own one of these. Yeah, we've got loads of this stuff that is personal. We've got a load of this stuff which is social, yeah? So conditioning, essentially, different types of conditioning, from different countries, from school, from families, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And like our values and stuff like that. And essentially, we see the world through that. It's almost like we're walking around with glasses. I haven't got my glasses. Yeah, we've got glasses on. And it's fine, because we're here, right? So those beliefs have got us to the way that we see the world. It is effective, it's useful, because it's got us to this point. We're still here, we've survived. So there's no reason for us to question what we believe to be true. Why would we? Because we got to this point. If our beliefs and the truth of reality is so far away, we would have walked off a cliff, or walked in front of a bus or something like that. We wouldn't be here, right? But because we're here, our map of the world is pretty good. It's pretty good. So when I talk about truth, it's not individual. It's what is the same for everyone. Okay? And I'll give you an example. If I let go of this, is it going to go that way, or is it going to go that way? Brendan, put you on the spot here. This is a tough question. That way. It's going to go that way or that way. It could go over here. What do we think, guys? It's going that way. It's not going that way 99 times out of 100. It's not going that way 999 times out of 1,000. It's going that way every single time, right? And none of you have any more gravity than I do, right? We've all got the same amount of gravity. Nobody gets a little bit more or a little bit less. Everyone has the same. It's the same for everyone. Procrastination is a completely normal human thing, right? There's 13 of you guys in here. Every single person in that, every single person walking up and down the street does the same thing. It's a completely normal, ordinary phenomenon. And understanding it and being a little bit gentler with yourself, being a little bit kinder to yourself, is going to be really helpful in terms of eliminating procrastination. So in the title of this talk, it's like eliminating procrastination. Essentially, the way that we eliminate it is we start to understand it, and we start to understand, well, actually, procrastination is an idea. It's a concept. As soon as we start saying, I'm going to procrastinate all the time, you're kind of feeding this procrastination dragon, right? And then you're beating yourself up because, oh man, I should be more productive, da 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 da. I've got so much stuff to get done. What happens is you get yourself into a spiral of thinking and blame on yourself and going, and you stop. You don't get to enjoy the work that you're doing. You don't get to enjoy the time with your family or the time doing your things because you're too worried about being productive. So I'm going to talk to you about some truths about the human condition, let's call it, human condition, and why sort of procrastination has become this big thing.
Is it something that's very human that animals do, do you know?
Well, animals haven't got anything to do, have they?
Survive.
So, okay, so that's a good question, and actually that comes to the this one and this one, right? Okay, so if we why don't animals procrastinate? Why don't they procrastinate? Does anybody have any ideas?
Because they don't have any goals.
Don't have any goals, maybe?
Don't have the same complex thinking that we do.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So, most of animal behaviour is directed by survival. Yeah? So it's just like, eat. Like, keep, if you're like a pack animals, you know, look after the tribe and blah, blah, blah. It's, when you if we stripped all of our daily lives to that, we wouldn't be procrastinating. Because it would be survival. Okay? So, one of the things about this is that if you had to eat, who puts off eating? Because who procrastinates because they're, oh no, I haven't got time to eat, I'm just gonna, yeah. Until, at some point do you eat? Yeah? At some point you eat, right?
Yeah.
It comes a point where you can't keep putting it off, right? So that is natural. That is natural. And actually, if you think about really important tasks, so I know that you guys are here because you procrastinate, but the really, really important things, vital things, vital for your survival, they get done. Now they might get done late, they might get done at the last minute, but they get done. And all in that build-up towards that getting done, you go, oh my God, I'm going to do, I'll be on social media, whatever it is you're doing when you're procrastinating, go to the gym, or whatever, right? But the really important stuff always gets done. It always gets done. So, for me, the idea of procrastination, what procrastination is for me, is this. Thinking that you should be doing something else. And so, procrastination itself is not the problem. What we have is we have a thinking problem. Say thinking problem, it's not a problem, it's fine. Because you can only do what you're doing. And if you were meant to be doing something else, then you'd be doing something else. If it was vital, if it was for survival, you would be doing it. The stuff that's really, really important, Like life and death stuff gets done. Like without fail, it just happens. You pull an all-night shift or whatever it is, like you have the capacity as a human being inside you, every single one of us, to do that, to get it done, to do whatever it is the right thing. So for me, it's an idea. For me, procrastination is an idea. It's thinking I should be doing something else, when actually you can only be doing what you're doing. Does anybody feel procrastinate on things that are useful or perceived to be useful, like reading or going to the gym or anything like that? Yeah? Does anyone have an example? Have you got an example?
Going to the gym.
Going to the gym, yeah. So, I mean, when you think about going to the gym or exercising is not a bad thing to do, right?
No, of course not.
But while you're in the gym, you're like, man, I know that I should be doing something else, right?
I think I should get work done first.
Yeah. So there's a good story from a mentor of mine, and he works a lot in sport, and so he was with a baseball hitter, batter, and they won the game, but he was really upset with his performance. So he wanted to stay behind and practice, but everyone was going out celebrating. Yeah. So he went out and they convinced him to come out celebrating. And the whole time throughout celebrations, he was like, I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that I should be practicing. I wasn't happy with my performance. And so he missed the celebration, right? Because his mind was elsewhere. A month later, same thing happens. They win the game, he's not happy with his performance. They all go out celebrating. What does he do? Any ideas? He stays behind. He's like, okay, last time I wasn't in the room with everyone, I wasn't celebrating, and I was regretted that I didn't stay behind. So he stays behind. What goes through his mind then?
He's missing out on celebration.
He's missing out on celebrations. And he's like, oh man, I should be out celebrating. So he's missing the moment in front of him. He's not practicing. And he's not enjoying the celebration in either of those moments, because he's not fully present. In any of those moments, he's not fully present. So, however you position it, procrastination, right? However, it all comes down to how you're thinking about what it is you're doing. That's what it comes down to. It's, am I present in this? Am I doing this? Am I doing this thing? Or am I not doing this thing? It's black and white. It's not quite the all or nothing thinking, but we'll come on to that, right? But you're either present and focused, or you're not. And that happens. We go in and out of this. This is not something we can control. This is our nature as human beings. We're in and out throughout the day, moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. Sometimes we're connected, we're fully in the moment. And sometimes our mind wanders and we start thinking about random stuff. And you're like, how did I get over there? How did I get into a beach in Barcelona? I was in London a minute ago. Okay, I'm still in London, right? And that's natural, and that is true for every single human being on the planet that's ever been on the planet and that ever will walk on the planet. That we will have moments when we're fully present and moments when we're away with the fairies. I like to call it away with fairies. I'm away with fairies quite a bit. But but being fully present and fully engaged by the activity that you're in is how you remain focused, is how you remain productive. By really giving all your attention to this one thing. Oh, I've got a trick actually, I do have a trick. So, these things are like distraction machines, right? They're like distraction factories. So like, turn it off. That's my trick. That's my tool. Turn it off if you can. Like, so if you need to use it for work, then can you do something to stop that? Right? Because that is the thing that distracts me the most. And so I just turn it off. And that seems to sort that out. But has anyone heard of the term flow before? You might have heard of it as like just going with the flow, but essentially flow is a psychological kind of phenomena that was coined in like the 60s by a guy with an amazing name, which is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. It took me 8 years to learn how to pronounce his name. And flow is that state of focused concentration when actually there's not a lot going on, not a lot of thinking going on. It's kind of autopilot. You just go, you're just doing it. You know when you're at your most productive? Guess what? Guess where you are?
In the flow.
Yeah. And we experience this daily, multiple times, without realizing it. You experience it. And essentially, it's also, so I would say it's the same place that, you are when you're driving, for example. If you learn how to drive, you're constantly thinking, okay, right, what do I do now? When you're first learning how to do something, and then it becomes automatic and you just do it. It just becomes completely natural and fluid. And you can drive hours without even realizing what's going on around you. But the key part of this is a quiet mind. It's a quiet mind. And so when you're in this state and when you're doing these things, you're not thinking about all the other things that you could or should be doing, because you're fully immersed in the task that's ahead of you. And so this quiet mind is exactly what you experienced when you were having a talk earlier on, when you started off, where you saw these thoughts coming up, you experienced these thoughts coming up, and you said, alright, I'm just gonna, that's my 8 o'clock alarm. Stop in just a sec for a break. You saw these thoughts, you experienced these thoughts come up, these questions, these, yeah, I agree with that, I know I want to say this. But you let them just go. You let them go. You didn't go, oh, I'm going to hold on to that one. They rise and fall by themselves, these thoughts. And this quiet mind is where we wake up in the morning. You wake up there in the morning before you check what time it is, and before you check, right, what am I going to to do today, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to get my breakfast. Before that chugging mind starts working, you experience this when you wake up. You also experience it the moment you fall asleep. Just as a test, has anybody fallen asleep with a busy mind before? Don't think it's possible. Don't think it's possible. As soon as you're thinking about stuff, no, I can't sleep. So you experience it in those two moments every day, and you experience it thousands and thousands of times throughout the day without even realizing it, because it's so normal. It's so ordinary. So the tips and tricks you're looking for, all of those tips and tricks point you really back to there. That's where the power is in there. The more tips and tricks, and this is where sort of NLP practitioners stumble and fall, is because they've got all the, oh man, yeah, I've got all these tips and tricks. It's like, that's the opposite of a quiet mind. Trying to do something to get you to a place that you already are. Like, that's your natural state. We wake up there. So it comes from a slight lack of understanding in terms of the underpinnings of what they're actually pointing people to. So this is also why meditation is really really good. It's why mindfulness is becoming incredibly popular. It's why yoga is really cool. It's why those things have been around for thousands of years, and we in the West now are going, right, we should put some science behind this stuff and get it into people's lives, right? It's like, well, the people who've been doing it for thousands of years, they don't need the science to back it up. They just do it because they know. But we're so busy being productive, or trying to be, that we don't know this. We don't know this. No one teaches us this. No one teaches us. It's just a shame. On that note, we'll have a short break. 10 minutes. And come back. What I would encourage it's really, really common to try and avoid that, right? To go and start. So I'm going to take myself off. I'll be back in like 10 minutes. I'm just going to see where we go next. And yeah. I mean, we're not going anywhere physically. Cool. So, I should have said this at the beginning, really, but do not believe a word that I say.
We don't worry.
What I absolutely suggest you do is look at your own experience. Look at your own experience. Do not believe anything I say. Just look at when you're procrastinating or when you're productive. What's going on? Like, does any of this, make sense? Does it marry up? If yeah, then awesome. Like, if you've got questions, we're going to have a little spot for questions. But for sure, the only place that I would suggest that you get evidence from is from your own experience. And I don't mean your own, your past experiences. Don't go there. But you can start there if you want. What I would suggest is your moment-to-moment experience. Your moment-to-moment experience of life. And what I mean by that is this moment. And in this moment, what's going on? And in that next moment, what's going on? And look at explore that, and explore what the content is going on up here. What's going on up there? And is there something going on up there? Or are you clear? Now when you're clear, it's a good place to set goals. Really good place to set goals. When you've got a whole bunch of thinking, it's not such a good place to set goals. Not such a good place. And the reason is that there's a whole bunch of other things that come into play. Now, that voice is very helpful in certain things. Yeah, it's really good for planning, it's really good for all sorts of things. But it's not great when you're trying to focus on a task and trying to get something done, because it takes you off to Barcelona Beach when, when you're supposed to be doing your accounts or something like that. So I wanted to just quickly talk about one thing, which is attention, your attention span. So your attention span, best science at the moment looks at about 12 minutes that you can keep your attention on a fixed task. General population. Youth, even less. So the fact that your attention and your concentration will move is a fact. That's just how human beings work. It's not possible for you to be for more than, unless you're like a Marine or something, unless you've had some severe training, some mental performance training, conditioning in that regard. Just do a quick little exercise. If everyone can just close their eyes for me, please. Just close your eyes. And I want you just to bring your attention to the sound of my voice. Bring your attention to the feeling of the chair underneath you. The feeling of any part of you that is touching the floor. Bring your attention into your heartbeat. And now bring your attention to the back of your eyes. So there's darkness. There's darkness. There might be a bit of light, but essentially there's no forms. There's just a blanket. And now, very slowly in your own time, just open your eyes. And bring your attention to the fact that you have now got so many different textures, so many different colours, so many different lights open to your experience now. We often take for granted how much our experience of life changes from just closing our eyes. You shut off a sense, shut off one of your vital senses, and the information that is being processed by your brain and the mechanisms, the procedures that your brain and your body are taking care of unconsciously are billions. Within the billions, I think. No one really knows how many processes. That's it. Nobody really knows how many processes there are. You hear that now, right? So your brain is having to deal with literally billions of pieces of information, billions of stimuli. And that's from your eyes, from your or every sense. So it's a big job. It's a big job. And that's really one of the reasons why we can't. It's very normal to get distracted by things. Very, very normal, very common. So it's okay. It's okay if that happens, because it means you're not in that flow state. You're not in that place of intense productivity, if you like to call it like that. If you're not in flow, but you might be back there in a moment. It can change at any moment. So, does anyone have a question that they'd like to ask that maybe I haven't covered yet?
I want to go back to what you were saying about beliefs versus truth.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like maybe there was something in the middle around like habit and comfort.
Mm-hmm.
So even with the Christmas example, there are still things that we do at Christmas knowing that Father Christmas isn't real because they feel good and
Mhm.
they're nice and everyone else is doing that.
Mm.
And I wonder if we can, so because when we're talking about beliefs, one of the things that I know is true for me is like kind of relates to someone had put that not being ready, and it's kind of a combination of not being ready and fear, because if I suggest an idea or a partnership or something, the moment I say it, a million very important things start happening, but so I get wild because I'm not in the right place to say it. Like, so as soon as I say it, I was going to be like, so when you're going to make the meeting with that person, and that person's really high, and then so I'm just like, let me just get it in the right place. And even if I recognize that that's just a belief of mine, I can see how the comfort zone of believing that it's just a bad habit I have would lead me right back there again. How do you get out of that comfort feeling or that habit that keeps you doing things you're not true?
So what I'm hearing in the question is, I know it's a belief, how do I get rid of it? Yeah? So how did you get rid of the belief of Father Christmas?
I think I would, I don't say replace it with a different belief, but it wasn't just knowing that Father Christmas isn't real, it was a kind of, maybe an alternative belief of that doing it was actually not good for me. Like it was, like some of the things we engaged in the family was just not the most efficient in terms of money. It wasn't actually having, there were other ways that we can recreate that feeling that would be much more better than like spending money on stuff that nobody really, that literally they feel the next day.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
So I would suggest, now it was a bit of a tricky question, but what I would suggest is the way that we get over beliefs is by seeing the truth. Is when that, you know, those like, or some people call them realizations, insights, you know, when that penny drops, that moment is when it all disappears. Sometimes it disappears instantly, and sometimes it disappears layer by layer, but essentially that's the only way that it disappears. So what we have here, now, I'm going to keep writing lines down the middle of the page. I don't know why I keep doing it, but I don't have to do that. Right, so you've got two different types of way of understanding something. You've got an intellectual understanding, and you've got an embodied understanding. Okay, big fun. You ready for this? Oh man, you weren't ready. Let's try again. It's okay, it's okay. So let's try, give it one more go. Let's give it one more go. Ready? Pressure's on there. Awesome. Yes. So Ephra, isn't it? Endaf has done in that moment a series of very, very complex equations, right? In a very, very short space of time, under pressure, under intense pressure, right? Now, do you know what those equations were? I don't. I was hoping. Does anybody know what those equations are? Velocity. Yeah.
Angles.
And yeah, absolutely, that kind of thing, right? And like looking at the peak of the trajectory, stuff like that, right? Now, having an intellectual understanding of that doesn't affect your embodied understanding, right? Does that make sense? You can have an intellectual understanding, go for it, like if you want to. But if you were to, I'll give an example. When I used to do the sports, one of the guys was really great at telling you all the different angles for the golf swing and what angle you need to do, and it's the most boring workshop I've ever been to in my life, I swear. And it was, yeah, I mean, get him on the golf course. Do you think he can play golf? Maybe, but you don't need this. You don't need it, okay? And for this type of work, to understand this, you don't need it.
But everyone has a different level of IQ, EQ, and all of that, and in doing so, although it may not be intellectual understanding, the natural ability to make it an embodied understanding surely is therefore better.
It can, from my experience, it gets in the way more than it helps. It gets in the way more than it helps. And the reason is, and I'll describe why that works, okay? So, what we're talking about here, now, I know what I'm talking about here is something which is the same for every single human being. So, whether you've heard one thing that's like, yeah, that makes sense, yeah? That makes sense to me. What you've got is this underlying truth about human nature, okay? Now, what you also have is you have this fella here, right? Okay? So the ego, it can also be called what I would call the narrative self. And some people call it the monkey mind, it's been called. Monkey mind or little mind. And that's that little voice, that's basically the intellect, right? Now, all this wants to do is continue its own survival, okay? It continues its own survival. There is absolutely in this space, it's redundant. There's no need for it. In this moment, there's peace. In this moment, there's clarity, there's love, there's contentment, there's happiness. That's bad news for this. It's bad news. So what the ego is also, its only goal is self-survival. So, and I'll give you an example of this. So one of my mentors worked a lot with, do you remember the Boston bombings? So he worked with a lot of the victims of the Boston bombings. And every time something terrible like this happens, people say, oh my gosh, it was so amazing that people all came together. And for me, that's not amazing. That's human nature. It's human nature to look out for one another. It's human nature to all band together and look after each other, right? But what he talked about was the when that bombing happened, do you think people were in flow or not in flow?
Flow.
They were in flow. Yeah? Fight or flight. They went, they just did whatever it was that they needed to do to get themselves out of that situation, right? They did not experience fear in that moment. They only experienced fear after, when they were in a safe place. This is how they reported it. So they acted automatically, and they just, let's just do what we need to do what we need to do, get to a safe place. And then it was only after they were in a safe place that shock set in, that the ego or the intellect caught up with actually what just happened, right? And what happens is, this one then goes, right, okay, let's just, oh my gosh, this is actually what just happened. Because when you're in it, when you're in that kind of situation, you don't have time. You don't have time to make sense of the situation. You just operate. You're on an automatic operating system, which is your survival system. And then, after the fact, this one kicks in and makes sense of that. So it's self-survival, and it's a feed-forward mechanism. Now what that means is that it will look for evidence for its own survival. It would say, well, I'm not ready because da 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 da. It will look for reasons to self-serve. And that's what keeps us stuck in loops. It keeps us doing the same things over and over again. It keeps us procrastinating on the same activities. It keeps us looking for the same types of partners, because this thing it needs drama in order to survive, right? And without drama, it's redundant. That doesn't mean that it's not helpful, right? So this develops when we're about, I think it's about 3 years old, maybe younger, 2. So if you think of a baby trying to make their way in the world, trying to make sense of the world, trying to achieve things in the world, like wants food or whatever, starts crying, and then the parents will give them whatever it is, because they don't know, they can't communicate. But then what happens is it starts to make associations. So if I make this particular noise, then I get that thing. Or if I wave my arm over there. So then this narrative self develops and goes, right, okay, this is making sense. Okay, so if you wave your hand over here, then you'll get the juice or whatever. If you cry, you'll get the juice. So you better cry. Now, what then happens is we over-identify with that. we believe that narrative self, the voice that's going on, the intellect essentially, is who we are. And that's not true. Because who we are existed before that, and exists before that. Who we are is the one that can see that there is something there, the one that can experience that. So then what we do is we take everything this says as if it's truth, because we're such good buddies with it and it's who we are. And we're convinced that that narrative voice is acting in our best interests all the time. But actually, it's not that it's not acting in our best interest. It doesn't know what's out there. It doesn't know what the future holds. It doesn't know what procrastination is. It doesn't know what a task is. It doesn't know what a room is. It's just neurons firing and interested in its own survival. And that went a little bit off piste there. I don't know if that was helpful.
I think kind of what I'm getting is that even if you on some level understand that it's a belief, essentially you're so hardwired into this thinking that everything in you takes you right back there.
Absolutely. Well, how many times are you procrastinating and then 5, 10, 15 minutes into doing whatever it is you're like, oh my God, I'm procrastinating. Because it's automatic. You're doing it. And you're like, oh crap, I'm doing it again. Right? So we're not in control of that. We're not in control of that. That's gonna happen. But what I would say is being kinder to yourself when it happens will help. Like, that's why I'm kind of trying to normalize it as much as possible, right? Because like it happens to everyone, right? And the kinder you are, the smaller the problem will be. Or the smaller the problem you'll perceive it to be. And then, I guess, like, exploring this guy when this is taking over is also particularly helpful, because then you catch yourself, you catch him out. Why am I on the beach in Barcelona? I'm supposed to be doing my accounts, you know. Okay. Anything else?
There's some personalities or traits that make some people more likely to procrastinate than others.
Are there?
Yeah. I know you
sorry,
said
you're
everybody.
Asking me, are there?
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, you said everybody does it, but are there some personalities or?
Yeah. I guess. I mean, if you look for it, you can probably find it. I would say, and that's what psychology is very good at. Psychology as a discipline is very good at going, oh, okay, like, there's a whole bunch of behaviours, it must be because of this. It must be because these people have a personality that is predisposed to this. For me, what personality is just a few of these. It's a few of these. Mixed in with some, with some biology, with some genes from your parents and stuff.
That's quite a complex system that you're looking at, so that's an entire person's experience that would affect their ingrained beliefs and the implications.
Yeah.
So understanding your own set of those I think is really important.
Yeah, it can be. It can be for some people, but also what I would say is that actually making sense of it, for me, trying to understand things is less helpful than accepting them for exactly the way they are. Because if I try and understand it, I can go round the house. I can, really. We're looking at an intellectual understanding here, right? Which is being driven by the ego, who's like, right, well, I need to be able to fit this into this box that I've created. Now, what I'm saying is that what we're talking about doesn't fit in the box. So how are you going to fit it in the box? You can't fit it in the box. So you can try and fit it in the box, but if you try and fit it in the box, you're just gonna. It's like trying to drink out of a water hose. Like a fire hose. It's like you'll get a bit of understanding from doing that, but it's not the best way, in my experience. And again, I'm only talking look at your own experience. Don't believe me. Absolutely don't believe me, whatever you do. But certainly, the more of this we experience, whilst doing stuff, not just sitting and meditating. You can do that if you want. Nothing wrong with that at all. Go for it. The more I seem to see that is more important than understanding it. If that makes any sense, I'm not sure. But equally, again, look at your own experience. And again, a lot of what I'm talking about will kind of drip in over the next couple of days. You might be hearing bits and pieces tonight, and you might want to explore them or not, and some things might hit you. But again, look at your own, test it yourself, test it in your own experience. There's a question there. Is there a question?
I'm still thinking about it. Give me another couple of minutes.
So yeah, I would highly recommend not doing that. Yeah, don't think about it.
Something that's been on my mind. So apparently all the kids these days, there's a big thing like using Ritalin, and so what my friend says, it is like chemically achieving a quiet mind, and he said his concentration was off the scale for hours. I'm guessing you're going to say it's.
I actually personally used it once at university, and I felt like I was absolutely locked in on the task at hand, and it was quite a strange feeling, because I'm someone who does have a very busy mind. I rarely have a quiet mind, no matter what I'm doing.
Most of us are. Most of us are.
Yeah, and actually, I sat at a desk for hours and hours and hours and hours. It was a sort of last ditch attempt. I'd left too much on my plate with deadlines looming, and it did. It really it quieted your mind, and none of the other distractions, and almost put blinkers on that nothing else in the room was there apart from what you task at hand. And that's not to say I did it once and I stopped. I didn't do it again because it was for that reason, but. It's actually, sort of when I left uni, 7-8 years ago, and even then it's an even more growing problem now. I've got a friend who works at university who said they're actually having to really sort of try and police it, because there's a proper trade of it going on, which is an illegal, illicit drug.
Is it the drug?
I think it's ADHD. Yeah. But my experience was it did zone in my focus. But there's a lot of negative side effects. There are, and you do feel some of them when you're on it, for the piece of work I needed to do, and that could be actually that it was a more of a way for me to actually say, actually now I've got the quiet mind, even though I would have had it even if I wouldn't have taken it. It could have been absolute placebo. But yeah, what's your view on they're called nootropics, right?
I'm not sure how you would describe. I have a very dim view of medication for children. I think that's a dangerous, slippery slope to go down. I think there are certain conditions where medication is really helpful, but what we have in this country now is an oversubscribed health service, and the GPs are like prescribing drugs to kids. I don't want to sound like I'm fear-mongering or anything, but possibly doing it when that's not the best thing to do. Where there's a chemical imbalance in the body, medication can help to balance that. Where there isn't a chemical imbalance, if you introduce a chemical, you're introducing a chemical imbalance, right? So then the body gets used to that, and it creates addiction to that, and I think it's a challenge. And with ADHD as well, what I would say about that is we have our education system is like, right, we've got 30 kids, you need to be sitting still, and it's like, they're kids. It worked for a long time, don't get me wrong, and that's cool, but now we've got different challenges, and I don't think the school systems are quite set up to deal with, most of them school systems is not quite set up to deal with all of those challenges. And so what they do is they go, oh right, well, just give this kid some drugs. And I think that's sad. I think that's sad.
I went to a really good talk recently, and it was during Mental Health Awareness Week, and it was given by a psychologist, professor of psychology, and he was talking about how the impact of social media and technology on children in particular, and addiction. He was talking about different ways to be addicted, and he was saying the best thing to try and avoid children or teenagers being addicted to technology is to get them into sport, because sport clears your mind.
Yeah.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah. And again, we're all talking about the same thing. Yeah. So go running, go for a walk, meditate, whatever it is. When you're playing sport, you're not consciously thinking about stuff. You're generally just on autopilot. There'll be moments where you're like, okay, I need to strategize here and da-da-da. But then when you're playing, your best, you're not thinking and you're not considering those things. But the psychologist, there's such a thing as exercise addiction as well, right?
Yeah, he did say that's if you've got an addictive personality, get into it.
Yeah.
Find an addiction that is.
Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible. That's horrible. It's such a common. I mean, that for me, what that does is that shows a lack of understanding, in my view. I know this guy's a psychology professor, and I'll go toe to toe with him happily. But I say that shows a lack of understanding of addiction, right? So, yes, exercise is better than heroin. Yeah, brilliant. Like, I agree. But that's, again, it's what I would call that is rearranging the furniture on the Titanic. It's like, yeah, we can rearrange the furniture, but it's not the point. So with addiction, it's escaping. You're escaping.
And that's about searching for the why.
Yeah.
And that is about asking the question of what it is that you experience that leads you to behave that way.
I would say less searching for why and more searching for who or what we are. Who or what we are. And when you understand who and what you are on a deeper level, on an embodied level, then you realise that the behaviours don't make sense anymore. They don't make sense to do that. But generally addiction is escaping from whatever moment it is in front of you. I have first-hand experience. It's thinking and behaving in a way that is to escape the situation you're in, whatever situation that is. And it's why we're addicted to our phones. We're all addicted. People talk like it's not an addiction. It's an addiction. Like the tone goes off and you're there. We're constantly checking them.
He did, by the way, say when he goes on holiday with his family, he goes to somewhere without Wi-Fi, which I thought was great. They have a week or 2 weeks without any technology.
Yeah. It's the now technology is a socially acceptable addiction. Absolutely, it's a socially acceptable addiction, and the reason again that it's an addiction is because you don't even realise how automatic it is, and B, how much time you disappears as soon as when you get into it. So but again, what that is when you're present in the moment that's in front of you, there's no need to look for other things. There's no need, because you see the beauty in what's around you, whatever that is.
Did you find you achieved that just through practice?
Yeah, I guess so. So when I did my masters, it was when I first started to learn about sort of present moment awareness and breathing techniques to kind of quieten down the mind. But I didn't really understand why it was helping. And then I started doing yoga and found that really therapeutic, really nice and calming, and really good on a physical level as well. But I really enjoyed that quietening down and the slowing down and being aware, like for example, I don't know if anyone does yoga, but they would say bring your awareness to the little toe on your left foot. So if everyone brings their awareness right now to the little toe on their left foot, like just because you're not aware of it doesn't mean it's not there. And then when your attention goes there, you're like, oh yeah, I've got a little toe there. I've never brought my attention to my little toe there. And it's the same with this stuff. Like just because you're not aware of it doesn't mean it's not working. It's working whether we know it or not. This is how it's working, right? But yeah, so that's when I started, and then over the last couple of years I've made it a real priority, and it's helped massively. Like I've never been a hugely busy-minded person, to be fair. I'm quite lucky in that way, but even that's kind of dropped quite significantly, to be honest. Yeah.
So in the question about understanding why, the answer is because we're human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's because we're human, and often when we look at the different tasks that we procrastinate on, often we procrastinate on tasks that are difficult, or they take a long time, or we find them just inherently boring. Those, generally speaking, are the tasks that we put off. We don't generally put off the tasks that we enjoy doing. Usually we do those first. So in terms of that question, yeah. And again, that's again kind of related back to our attention span. And it's like, right, okay, well, and why a lot of people, you know what they say, if you've got a big task, cut it into smaller tasks, you know, big overarching goal, cut it into smaller goals and do mini goals and stuff like that. Hey, if it works for you, go for it. Go for it. And again, this is something that I don't recommend these things. I don't recommend these tricks and tools because you know what works for you already. Like I haven't got anything that you haven't already heard. So what I would suggest is like what worked for you in the past. If that works, cutting it down into smaller goals, go for it. Give it a go. Try it and see if that helps. But I certainly don't recommend people do stuff because I don't know what's going to work for you. Best to go and try it and see what works for you and then keep going with what works for you. So I'm not in the advice giving business. I'm in the understanding business. I'm in the how does it work? Like how does it work? How does the system work? It's useful to know how the system works and then we can use that information. Cool. Any more for any more?
Practical question. What
Go
is
for
the
it.
reason you're doing this talk?
What is the reason? That's a good question. I don't know. I guess I like helping people. And I like sharing this. I think it's quite good to share. It changed my life hugely over the last 3 years, for sure, to have an understanding of this. And so, if people are interested in learning more, then you can whack your email address down. And I'm recording this, so I'm going to be putting it all up on my website and stuff. Like you won't be in it, don't worry. Yeah, and then there's like some more resources in there. So if you want to keep in touch, then please do. If we've got time, I'd like to just share one thing, or maybe two things. No, not really, but let's go for it anyway. Does anyone really want to shoot out? You can go if you really want to shoot out. So, it's going to look like a demented teddy bear. It's a teddy bear, okay? My teddy bear drawings, I've drawn this so many times and they don't get any better, I'm afraid. But I did not, art was not my strong point, okay? So, let's call this person AJ and Freddie. AJ is 4 years old. Okay. Now, how does AJ feel when he's holding on to Freddie?
Safe.
Safe.
Secure.
Safe, secure.
Warm.
Secure. Warm.
Loved.
Loved.
Content.
Content.
Comforted.
That'd do. And how does he feel when Freddie is not there?
Vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Low.
Low. Anything else?
Bereft.
Bereft. I've never had that one before. Fantastic word. It's my favourite. Afraid. Who said afraid? Oh yeah. Sorry, I missed that. Afraid. Okay. So, there's 3 possible explanations. So 100% of the feelings are coming from Freddie. 100% of the feelings are coming from AJ. And 3 is like a mix of the 2. Okay. So what we've got is here for right, just take that in for a second, okay? Freddie is not a magical bear. I just needed to say that to start off with, right? He's just full of fluff, or whatever they fill bears with, I don't know. Put your hand up if you think number 1 is true. Okay. Put your hand up if you think number 2 is true. Put your hand up if you think number 3 is true. You're not sure.
It was a teddy then though, it was a person.
Okay. So, it really looks to AJ that their feelings have some kind of correlation or causation by Freddie, right? It really looks that's true. Right? Now, that's not possible. It's not possible. Because the feelings are experienced within our body, as far as I'm aware. Okay? So the idea that an inanimate object can create a feeling and then transmit the feeling through the skin and into a human being, that's crazy. Right? Now, but according to AJ, that's true. He believes that's true, right? He believes that his teddy is like the most important thing. Right. Now, when AJ gets to like 6 years old, he's forgotten all about Freddie. Right? Freddie's in the loft somewhere. And so he's replaced Freddie. He's replaced Freddie with a dog, maybe. Friends. Toys. Other toys. Okay. When Freddie gets to 18, these things get replaced.
mean, when AJ gets to 18.
Yeah. When AJ gets to 18, might be
Partner.
a partner. Might be money.
Status.
Status. Might be a job. It doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. Like, physically, I don't understand how that can work, right? But, oh, hold on a minute. That one works. Oh, that one definitely works.
Well, one's inanimate and one's not. You do get something from anything that's alive. So then that's where the mix comes in. Because it's a two-way system.
Yeah, like a dog will love you
You will
unconditionally.
get a response and a transaction.
Yeah.
A money status and a job can't.
But you don't have to love a dog because a dog loves you. And someone could give you the idea that they love you, and you're like, oh, they love me, that's why I love them, and they're deceiving you. So it's still, I guess, coming from you. Even though the thing is living.
I think there are some genuine feelings in the world though that do come back.
So.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Do you know what I mean?
I see where you're coming from,
Yeah.
for sure. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true.
Apparently everything is connected though. So there's something vibrating, so actually everything is vibrating, everything that's alive apparently. And there's so we're all kind of connected. So I don't know if feelings can transmit through something else. Actually, maybe they can.
Maybe they can.
I don't know.
As far as I can see, from my, again, look at your own experience, don't believe me, don't trust me. We're all in agreement here, as far as I can see. Then when it gets a bit more serious, we start to lose agreement. And I can totally see.
But that's because you've chosen Freddie as a bear.
Yeah.
If you chose Freddie as AJ's twin.
Or a mother.
Yeah, so really the point of this is that it doesn't matter what this is. Your feelings are inside your body.
They can't take away that's
and they're coming, they're an experience that you're having that happens within you, okay? And
but also there are natural chemical reactions in the body that is not a choice and is not a thought process. It's, the release of serotonin, for example, is not something that you can control.
Absolutely.
So you're saying nothing else can control that either?
No, absolutely.
No, we can't control it, but we do have an impact on each other. We're not completely isolated beings. We relate.
Naturally social animals.
So, but I guess it's whether so someone can show you love, and that can make you feel good or bad, but the feeling, so not
or neither, you could be neutral to it.
So I guess the feeling you have is you, but then you having a feeling could be related to the other thing. But if you feeling good, it's not because of that person, it's because you choose what that feeling is.
You
and I guess ignorance.
So let me
let me
see if I can just clear this up, right? If this was true, if that were true, then this same thing would have the same effect on every single person. When we think about it, we're looking at truth, right? If that were true, you would have to, that same job would make everybody feel exactly the same way, right? If that were true. That's the way I see it, okay? So this is where I'm distinguishing between truth and belief here. And I'm looking at truth, I'm looking at something that's the same for every single person. So for that to be true, I would say that it has to have the same effect, but it doesn't. It doesn't. If you look at your own experience, if you look at the evidence that is in front of you, I know it looks really compelling. It looks really compelling that someone else can give you a feeling. It does, and it's.
But would you not say the fact we all experience the same feelings? We all can experience the feeling of, well, minus psychopaths, feeling of love.
Yeah,
feeling of
that's true.
feeling of
I'd go for that. I'm with you with that. But the fact that they're related, so it's like it's confusing correlation with causation. That's what it is, right? It's confusing. And this is the way I see our feeling state. Throughout the day, we're like this, moment to moment. Sometimes we're feeling like connected, we're feeling loved, and we're feeling happy. And sometimes we're feeling kind of disconnected, distracted. And we're going like this. We're going in and out of this experience, moment to moment. So every moment, every day, it's going. Now, most of the time when we get to like here, we go, Sherlock Holmes, why am I feeling like this? Freddie, it's because I haven't got Freddie. Once we create that association, then when Freddie's not there, we go, oh, Freddie's not there, but oh man, then your stomach drops. So we're creating this association.
It's attachment, yeah.
Yeah.
But
so what I'm suggesting with this is that the way that we understand how things are working is actually not quite right. And when we're involved in tasks and when we're doing stuff and when we're trying to work, we're having that. And then when we get like to kind of here, we go, oh, this is boring, I'm going to do something else, or and it happens automatically, right? But when we're like up here and just like, I mean, I did my accounts, man. It's the most boring thing. For me, it's the most boring thing. But they needed to get done, and I was just like, right, just do it. Just do it. Just get it out of the way. Just get it done. And I did not enjoy it, but I got it done.
It feels good after though. I had that same thing last week,
Well,
and I was so happy when I was done.
Yeah. But you're feeling, you notice it and you think it's because you've done your accounts, but it's like no. That's just normal. It's just oh, you're having a nice experience. Okay, cool. But as soon as we start to look outside, we're looking in the wrong direction. One of my mentors says we turn into a shit Sherlock Holmes because we're looking in the wrong direction. And so there's when you realize actually, well, this is just happening. It's okay to feel disconnected. It's okay to feel low. It's okay to feel a bit of sadness. It's okay to feel a bit of depression. It's okay. These things are okay. They're not something that we have to try and fix, because actually, in a moment, like your friend calls you or whatever, you get distracted. When you get distracted from that and back immersed into life, back immersed into something, you don't even realise. Most of these feelings that we have, we don't even realise them. We don't even realise that there's this sensations going on in our body.
But that's what I think is wrong with the wider society at the moment, is that people are focused on noticing when you're at the bottom, and no one actually stops and goes, I'm at the top.
Well,
no one actually stops and goes, oh wow, this is, sort of smells the
well, I would just put something. I agree. I totally agree. But I think another problem is that they think that has got something to do with their job, their relationship, their and it's like no, it's got nothing to do with that. It's just basically because you're a human again. Like you've got that capacity within you to feel that, and every single human being has got that same capacity. We all have. All of us, every single one that's walked across the face of this earth, and everyone will. And this is actually the reason that I share this, because I think I lived my whole life not knowing that, not knowing this, and it makes you, your beliefs have implications. So if you believe that a partner is going to make you happy and complete, I was on the search for a partner for years, because I thought that was going to make me happy and complete. And then you get a partner and you're like, oh, this is great, just what I've always wanted. And then a couple of years later, it's like, this isn't working out quite as I thought it was going to, And it's like, how come it's not like roses every day? Like.
But what about the opposite? So if you've got a belief that everything's already in you, then what would be the implications of that?
Great question.
Would you ever connect with anyone?
Great
would you
question.
ever get a job? Would
Great
you
question.
start?
Great question.
You wouldn't need anything.
You don't. You don't. But it doesn't make sense just to stay in bed all day long. Because we've only got one shot at this. You know? I was at a funeral on Thursday for a friend's brother, and he had a heart attack at 50. And I was just like, it's gone. It's gone. Before you even realise what you've got, we're out of here. We're checking out. And so, you know, we go back to bed, we start the day in bed and we end the day in bed, so what's the point of getting out of bed? Right? The point is that this is a great, cool thing that we've got here, which is really nice. Like, go out and experience it. Go, what can you do? What can you achieve? So coming from that place is powerful. It's powerful. Or not. Cool. Thank you. And I think that's a good place to finish up. Unless anyone has any other questions, I mean, yeah, I'm not in a rush to go anywhere. So if people do have questions, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy days.
Oh, give me your email address.
Yeah, back here.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're very welcome. Yeah, write down your email address if you'd like to. I do talks regularly.
Yeah.
So yeah. Or I have done for the last 3 months, and
yeah.
so I think that will carry on. I hope. Thank you.
Did you do the same talk?
No, this is the second time I've done this one,
Okay.
but I mean it's always different anyway. But I did one on stress and anxiety last time. I think imposter syndrome is the next one maybe. I don't really know. Yeah, I mean, well I kind of do. It's when you don't think that you're qualified to be doing what you're doing.
Let's say that everyone has to. No, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So if everyone has it, how is it a thing? It's not a thing, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So psychology is really good at making things really scary, and it's like, no, you can't understand this because you're not intellectual enough. And it's like, no, everyone's the same. Everyone's dealing with the same stuff. Just different flavors of it, different versions of it, right? So it's good to understand. Like imposter, like it came out as a big thing, like imposter syndrome, when I did like a survey. It's like, wow, is that a thing? It's something that people really. And I spoke to a few colleagues, and like, yeah, it's really common. People.
Also, I've experienced it.
Yeah. And it's just thinking.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just thinking and believing that your thinking is true.
Yeah.
And it's like, your thinking isn't true. Your thinking doesn't know about the outside world.
Yeah.
Oh,
cool.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. My pleasure. You're so welcome. Take care. Have a safe journey.
See you next one.
Yes. Brilliant. Thank you.